Good morning, everybody. Welcome into a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. Johnny Mack and the Eagles, they end training camp, John, and you think you're about to get a little break or something, and boom, Howie Roseman makes a trade. Jahan Dotson is the newest Philadelphia Eagle. How you doing on this Football Friday, Johnny Mack?
Yeah, welcome, Jahan Dotson. So everybody's going to be fired up about that. We'll talk about that a lot. We did an emergency football 24/7, so a lot of people listen to that. Thank you for tuning into that, and more info from DC a little bit in their thought process, because that's where mine goes. It's like, it looks good on paper, but when it looks good on paper, I tend to go the other direction, and I say, well, there's something got to be wrong from Washington's standpoint, because this doesn't make a lot of sense. And we'll see how it shakes out. But we'll talk a lot about Jahan Dotson, his fit here, which I think is better. I think that's the big thing. Like, he's the 16th overall pick there. He's not the 16th overall pick here.
Right.
And the fit is better here as a complementary player than what he was expected to become in Washington, which obviously he did not reach. So I think that's important. Very similar in a different way, but very similar to Saquon Barkley. As a foundational piece, no, not going to work. As a complementary piece, it might work very well. And that's sort of the position the Eagles are in.
No doubt about it. I want to welcome everybody in this morning. Remember, this show is brought to you today by BetUS. Thanks to our good people at BetUS for sponsoring Birds 365. More about them later on. Johnny Mack, you said something about, tapping into the reporters that have covered Dotson. We broke it down a little bit on the Football 24/7, the compensation, the trade. I'd like to do that all again here on Birds 365 for the different listening audience. So break us down on the trade, the details of the trade, your overall thoughts on it. I know you kind of just gave a short synopsis, but and then we'll get into what the comments came from the Commanders reporters that have been covering Dotson since his
Yeah, I mean, well, the trade is the Eagles get Dotson and a 5th-round pick in 2025 in exchange for a 3rd-round pick that year and 2 7th-round picks. So obviously the main consideration is the third. The Eagles have 2 3rd-round picks, had 2 3rd-round picks, their own and Miami's. This pick will be the better one of those. So, but, both teams are expected to be pretty good. Eagles and the Dolphins. Probably the Dolphins, I'm guessing, will not be quite as good as the Eagles. So it's probably going to end up being their 3rd-round pick. But that obviously that can go a lot of ways. And they have 4 7th-round picks, which is, you don't need 4. So no issues giving up some of them. Of those 4, they're giving up the 2 worst. So they're giving up the 3rd and 4th of those 7th-round picks. So that's sort of the trade parameters.
Not crazy from a compensation standpoint. I mean, that 3rd-round pick is high, but not a crazy package to get him.
No, not at all from a standpoint of a contending team. Certainly not. And,
right.
This was the number 16th overall pick, as I mentioned, in the 2022 draft. So it hasn't been a long ways. Now, I remember at the time when Washington selected him, that caught a lot of people by surprise that he went that high. So probably a little bit overdrafted, but nonetheless, he was considered to be a 1st-round pick, probably in the later 1st round by most people. And Washington, for whatever reason, liked it. And remember, they've shifted gears since then. Not only everything from the owner on down is out. So that group that drafted Jahan Dotson is not there. You have Dan Quinn, you have Cliff Kingsbury, and you have Adam Peters, the new GM, who is already, he and Howie seem to be getting very close. Howie traded up with him to get Cooper DeJean in the 2nd round, going up to 40. You remember everything the team's putting out clips of the draft room and Howie trying to finagle the rookie GM for a later first round pick. And Adam Peters made a nice little quip at Howie. So it's going to be interesting, in the division. So that's where my mind goes immediately. Like, why is Washington giving up on him? Number one. And two, they're trading him in the division. Typically, you don't want to do that because last thing you want to do is trade a guy and then he's going to come back and
right.
help you lose twice, and everybody's going to make a big deal out of it. And, that can cost people their jobs. So, Adam Peters seems very secure in this decision. And we'll see how it works out. Again, I get why he's not a fit in Washington. I get why he could be a fit in Philadelphia. And that's the old, I think people assume, well, he's a good player here, he's going to be a good player there. Not necessarily. The Eagles are in a different spot than Washington. So it probably makes both. It probably makes sense from both perspectives. One thing, and I texted you as soon as we got off the air because somebody got back to me right as I got off the air with you.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that next. What did you hear from the guys down there?
Yeah, and one of the things that my source told me, and I got to pull it up. I don't want to misquote him, but one of the things that people kind of talked about, and even the Washington Post this morning when I saw their report about it, is talked about his play strength, and he's not very physical. So clearly that's the spin coming out of the Washington front office. The Post described it as on-field strength was a weakness. His inability to play through contact could essentially led the team to conclude that he was a bad fit for the vertical passing scheme run by Cliff Kingsbury. And the quote he got from a scout was, he's fluid and fast, but not sudden or strong. So evidently he's got some issues with press coverage and things of that, and getting off the line of scrimmage. And my source was a little bit crueler, I would say. His, complete total lack of physicality is number one. Soft and a bit mopey. But he did say he's a very good route runner.
Okay.
So he did
followed it up with, all right, he can run routes, but boy,
sort of like that. I would say it's a compliment sandwich, but he didn't give the compliment in the middle. He just went harsh and then said, yeah, but he's a good route runner. So
John, I gotta be honest, I hate those two adjectives, soft and mopey.
But we talk about Vic. A lot of people don't like Cliff Kingsbury, and there was a chance he's going to be there. So maybe he just didn't like Cliff Kingsbury, the new offensive coordinator there, who the Eagles interviewed to be the offensive coordinator here before they hired Kellen Moore. And some people believe they would have hired him, but he wanted a little bit more autonomy than they were willing to give up as far as coaching staff and things of that nature. So I don't know if that's the case, or they would have hired him, but they was pretty much off the rails. He's the first guy they interviewed, and it pretty much went off the board quickly because he wanted too much autonomy. And I think that's a good thing from the Eagles' perspective, because I'm not. He rubs people the wrong way, and maybe you just rubbed them the wrong way. Not everybody, but some people.
Yeah, no. Ian says you'd be mopey too, having to catch balls from Sam Howell. Okay, not a bad point there from Ian. John, 2 super chats I want to hit on, and then I got a question to follow.
Don't say that to Ed Kratz. He's going to be on the show. He's a big Sam Howell guy.
That is true. Ed Kratz loves Sam Howell. Rashid Mixon, what's up, Rashid? Good morning, brother. Good morning to everybody in the chat. By the way, hit that like button. We'll be covering this all day long. We have a great show planned for everybody. Rashid says, good trade by Eagles. He averaged 500+ yards, exactly what we need from him. Plus, we have him for 2 years, so our receivers should be intact for a while. Agreed, Rashid. I think that's the
come on,
benefit of it.
Rashid, not a vacuum, man. He caught 500 yards in an offense where he's supposed to be the number 2. That ain't good. That's like Devontae catching 500 here.
Yeah,
that ain't good. And
they gave up on him quick, man. That's a first-round draft pick you give up on after 2 years.
Now as a third, again, the fit's better here. There's not expected to do as much.
Right.
So the fit's better, but you can't just say, oh, you got 500 there, we could place that in 500 here. No, he's not going to get as many opportunities. He's not going to be looked at as much. And the key with that third receiver spot, and we've been talking about it for all, you're not getting a lot of traffic. So here in Philadelphia. So, when the ball comes your way, make the play. That's what Quez Watkins was unable to do late in his career here. And I think Dotson will be able to do that. So I think it's a significant upgrade.
Yeah, it's an upgrade, but it's not this perfect thing that puts us over the top. I think that's where people are going a little haywire on it. I like the player. I don't love the player. I think it's an upgrade from what we had, but I don't know. We'll see. Prince Swayze says, it seems that many are underestimating the significance of this move. We now have a player who can create space, make catches, and run routes. John, what do you have to say to Prince?
Yeah, I mean, he's athletic. And as he said, he's a good route runner. Now, people have the book on him, and if that's the book on him, and he has trouble getting all press coverage, they're probably going to try to press him. They're going to try to make him play through contact. He's not a contested catch guy, not a physical guy. So we'll see how it shakes out. But it was a tremendous weakness for this team, not only wide receiver 3, but to me, as I've stated pretty consistently, the backup, if in case AJ or Devontae sprained an ankle, was my even bigger concern and had to miss a game or 2. Now the Eagles are much more equipped to handle that. Now that doesn't mean if that happens and he's got to play 70 snaps, he's going to play like they play, because that's not true.
That's not happening.
But I'm saying you're much better equipped to persevere in that type of situation. And this guy can make some plays, and you didn't have that player on the roster before. So unquestionably, it's a good move for Philadelphia because of the role, and we'll see how he embraces it. I've never met the kid. Maybe it's just he didn't like Cliff Kingsbury. Maybe the new a lot of people need a change of scenery. Maybe it sparks him, and maybe he gets better being the complementary piece instead of the expectations of being the number 16th overall pick. Well, he ain't the 16th pick in Philadelphia. He's the 16th pick in Washington. So you saw this when you went through things with Jalen Reagor and Nelson Aguilar. The expectations of being that first-round pick and a pretty high first-round pick are enormous. And you can go somewhere else, and they don't exist, those expectations. And things become a little bit easier. So, yeah, I like the fit from the Eagles standpoint. I think I will say it a million times. I've said it a million times. I'll say it a million more. It's not a vacuum. He's probably not a good fit in Washington. He isn't a good fit in Washington. He looks like a very good fit in Philadelphia.
Agreed.
They're not the same situations.
A couple more super chats here, John, I want to get to because we got Damo coming up. Everybody's been showing a lot of love this morning. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Prince dropped another one. He said, blitzing the Eagles will come at a cost. Additionally, this lineup no longer has a weak link, making it challenging for opposing teams to defend. I think that is a good point there, John. Quick response to Prince. I got 2 more super chats I got to get to.
Well, blitzing the Eagles already should have been a problem with A.J. Brown. And it wasn't. So that has more to do with other aspects than the receivers. That has to do with teaching during the week, everybody being on the same page, identifying the blitz, and going to the right answer for the blitz. That really doesn't have to do with, other than the receivers have to be on the same page as the quarterback. So
Right.
there's a preparation aspect to it. But you should have done, you know, the Eagles should be good against the blitz because of the presence of A.J. Brown, period. And they weren't at the end of last year. So that involves way more than just having a bunch of skilled and athletic receivers, because they should have already been good at it.
Good comment here from Brian Fleming. Brian, thank you, man. $20 super chat. We appreciate that. Appreciate the support of the show. As always, Brian says, diving deeper on this Dotson move, it was done to limit blitzes on Hurts and basically mandates zones because cover zero man against all these weapons won't work. Plus, their CB1 problem won't travel with Kellen's motion. Good luck. It's a good point.
Yeah, this is the NFL. And until the Eagles prove they can handle the blitz, they're going to get blitzed, period. Now, if it works the way Brian says it, yeah, people will stop blitzing.
Right.
But they got to prove it. Nobody's going to say, oh, the Eagles fell apart against the blitz, but now they have Jahan Dotson. We're afraid to play cover zero. Well, the weakness to his game, in theory, is press coverage. So you just press him at the line. He's, you know, boom. Timing of the play is probably gone.
That happened in the slot, though, John? A lot. I mean,
yeah, you can press. You can press anywhere.
Right.
So, you know, until the Eagles prove they can handle the blitz, they're getting blitzes. Now, if it works out, yeah, people will back off and they'll play a ton of zone. And they probably will play their safeties in the parking lot, which creates another problem. Then you have to be disciplined, and then you have to be patient, and then you have to be willing to dink it and dunk it down the field. So, but because of what happened at the end of last year, at least early, teams will be blitzing the Eagles until they prove that they can handle it.
No doubt. Cody Stacy checks in. Having him means defenses have to account for him. This move puts the offense over the top simply because of the matchup nightmares. Yeah, John, you've already talked a little bit about that. It's definitely a matchup concern for any opposing defense. But what's your response to Cody? Cody, thanks for the super chat, man.
Well, the Eagles already had, you know, it's nice, as I said, more for the depth, and it's not going to be a high traffic position from a volume standpoint. They already had they before Jahan Dotson ever steps in the building, they already were a matchup nightmare for every defense with AJ, Devontae, Dallas, and Saquon. They were already a matchup nightmare. So, yeah, I don't think this puts them over the top. I mean, everybody was expecting them to be the number one offense before he got there. So, does it make a little bit better? Yes. Does it make it more likely to hit that ceiling? Yes. But, you know, it was already, I was talking with Mike Gill yesterday on his show before, actually it was after. So it was after, but I after the trade, but they were already, I mentioned that they were already a matchup nightmare. You know, defensive coordinators aren't sleeping the night before playing this team, whether they have Jahan Dotson or not, but it does make them more likely to hit that ceiling.
No doubt. That's a good take there, John. Let's get to our first commercial break. We have Paul Domowitch waiting in the green room, ready to talk to Damo. Coming up next here on Birds 365. Damo, sorry for making you wait. Appreciate your patience. Before we get to our first commercial break, I'm going to tell everybody about our sponsor, BetUS. By the way, you were all great in the first segment. I appreciate that, John. Great stuff as well. BetUS, everybody. Are you looking for a new book this football season? BetUS is the answer, and JAKIB Sports is proud to announce our new partnership for the upcoming season. Right now, everybody, click the link in the description and receive a 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. If it's good for former Birds quarterback Michael Vick, it's definitely good for JAKIB Sports. BetUS has the fastest payouts in the industry. They have 24/7 personalized service 365 days of the year, and it's fast and easy to deposit and withdraw. So go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. The link is down in the description. Tell them JAKIB Sports sent you. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back in 3 minutes with Paul Domowitch here on Birds 365.
Michael Vick at betus.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.